Alright, hello everyone. My name is Jeff Scott and I teach information technology at Rankin Technical College in Wentzville. And this class, this week, we're going to be introduced to Scratch programming. I'm going to take for granted that you have little to no programming experience. Okay? I suppose if you do, you might find a little bit of this stuff repetitive. As far as what we'll do this week, today, this is the introduction right now. And I plan on having us write at least a couple programs today. First program that we write will be called Rainbow Art, and I'll go over it in a little bit, but it allows us to draw some pretty colorful stuff on the screen. After that, we'll do a more conventional type of program where we will be allowed to guess a number between 1 and 100, and we can keep guessing until we get the number. It'll keep track of the number of guesses. And also, it'll allow us to play the game multiple times if we so desire. Tomorrow when you come in, we're going to be going over a maze game. Literally, we'll have an animal that'll be trying to get to a treat at the end of a maze, and it'll be a single-player game. Alright? And then we'll add some stuff to it on Wednesday where it will be a two-player game, where we can literally have two players at the keyboard, one using letter keys, one using arrow keys, and one starting at the top of the maze, the other at the bottom of the maze, but both going in their own directions. Alright? Then on Thursday, we'll have a brick breaker game. You probably have seen this kind of game before. And we'll add a few things into it. We'll add some color into it, we'll add some sound into it, etc. And that'll be a single player game, and finally on Friday, we'll add two players to it. If we end up getting done earlier, we'll get into something else as well. Now, the key to being able to do this stuff is to go out to the Scratch website. And I actually made this harder on this slide than it really is. You can go out to https://scratch.mit.edu. Or you can just go to scratch.mit.edu. And if you do, this is what you're going to see. Alright, this is the Scratch website. I scaled down the size so that you can see it on screen. I'm going to bring it up in just a second. And you're going to see some stuff that's up here. These are the menu options, and I'm going to show you those in just a minute. Alright, and then down here, under the Welcome to Scratch, you've got some information. Learn how to make a project in Scratch, try out starter projects, etc. Alright, we're not going to do any of that. There's some pretty topical Scratch news here. Then down here, featured projects. We're not going to do this either, but there are already built-in projects that you can go out to and you can take a look at what's out there. But once you get going, let's take a look at what's up on the top here, right there. Alright, and you'll notice, and I'm going to bring it up literally in just a minute, that if you ever click the word Scratch that you see way to the left, it always brings you back to that home page. So clicking there will always bring you back right here. And it'll show you this. Alright. Explore will do just that. It'll give you some ideas, some news, some topical stuff about Scratch, some things you may or may not have known about. Ideas, sometimes people are searching for an idea to get started. You're given an assignment, write a program about X, and you have no idea what to write about. Alright? About has a little bit more information regarding the actual site and the language itself. Search, as you'd probably guess, allows you to search and really take a look at different things and see if something is in the website. And then over here, once you sign up for Scratch, and we're going to go through that process in just a bit, but once you go through and sign up for Scratch, what's going to happen is you're going to get an email that asks you to verify your email for Scratch and to make sure you're not a robot type of thing. That's really the only time I've ever gotten anything in here. This folder is called My Stuff, and literally what it does is it holds a copy of all the work that you have. Alright? And this right here, when you click on this, this is going to be different for you, of course, because once you set it up, you need to put your own login, etc. This is my login. All right. And when you click down here, it allows you to change your settings, change your profile, and do a few other things. All right. Now, once you come in here and you click Create to actually get started and create a new file, what you're going to see is this menu right here is going to change. It's going to change from this to this. So you'll notice Create, Explore, Ideas, and About. They're all gone. All right. Search is gone. This stuff that's right here, all right, pretty much is gone, but it'll pop in and out. This right here, again, will get you back to the home page. This will allow you, if you want to change the default language you're using, and you'd probably guess it defaults to English. All right. This allows you to go through basic file type of operations, creating a file, etc., basic edit operations. This has got some tutorials that you can click on. And once you start, what's going to happen is it's going to create a new file for you that's called Untitled-1. Now I'm at 5 because I've got 4 other Untitles I've already got in there. All right. This will allow you that if you click that, once you've finished with your project, all right, you can share it, which means that it will put it out on the internet for other people to take a look at. All right. They can also do what's called a remix, where there'll be a button on there where they'll be able to take your code and make a copy of it, not the original, but it'll make a copy onto their machine. So if they want to use that to start with, or if they think, well, you got a pretty good, idea there, but I'd like to change it a bit, or I'd like to add to it, they're able to do so. And this, as it says, will bring up the project page. Now, before I go on to actually setting up the Scratch account, let's take a quick look at what's out there. All right, so we're going to go to scratch.mit.edu. And this is the same opening page that I showed you before. Now, by the time I've made these PowerPoint slides in early June 2020. By the time we get going for class about a month from now, what's in here may have very well changed. The featured projects almost certainly will have changed, etc. But that's no big thing one way or the other. All right, so you can see how far this goes down. I should also mention on here that if you go down to the bottom, you'll notice that it says download right there. All right, and we're using Scratch right now as basically a browser type of app you might look at. So we're running it right from the browser. But if you've got a really bad internet connection, it's really slow or it's spotty or whatever, you might want to click download right here. And if you do that, you can download the Scratch app where it'll save it for you to your desktop, and then you'll be able to run it from there. The only thing is, once you do that, it will not automatically save it to your account that's online. So you'll have to change, and you'll have to do a file, and you'll have to tell it to save it basically to your regular account. All right, it's not hard. It's a pretty simple process. So as it says, you can do a direct download, you can get it from the App Store, but either way, you'll run the executable. Now, there's a lot of stuff out there on the system. So you can go out onto YouTube and find literally hundreds, if not thousands, of Scratch videos. And what you're going to find is anything that's created probably in the last year or so will be for Scratch 3.0. That's what we're using. Prior to that, it was Scratch 2.0. All right, before that, as it says, it was 1.4. They've got some FAQs here. I'm not going to go through this with you right now. I just wanted to mention to you that if that becomes an issue, a slow download or whatever, this is what you might want to consider doing. All right, so again, we're back at the home page. And what you're going to notice, I'm going to click Create right now, and it's going to create a brand new project for me. All right, and when it creates this brand new project, in fact, before we even do that, let's go through the process that you'll have to go through to actually get an account. I think that would make a little bit more sense right now. So when you do this, when you set up an account, as it says, you choose a username. Now, for instance, my name is Jeff Scott. If I had put in there Jeff Scott, probably they would have told me somebody already has that username. But I could put in Jeff Scott 12345 or something like that. I could do that if I wanted to. All right. When you choose your password, kind of an important thing, you'll want to make sure that whatever you do, first of all, as it says, you'll have to have it in there twice. I think it requires a number, and it's like it's either 6 or more characters or 8 or more characters. All right. But the point is, you probably would be in your best interest to write it down and put it someplace where you won't lose it. All right. This is a 4-step process. So as it goes through all this stuff, it'll ask you, and we're going to do this as a class. All right. But it'll go through and it'll ask you a series of questions. It's really nothing hard. It's nothing super, super personal. I think they do ask your birth month and year. That's about as personal as it gets. When you get all the way done, again, they'll send you an email on this. All right, I already mentioned that. So let's take a look at what's in here. If you'll pardon me for just a second, all I want to do is just, there we go. All right, so when you get started, and I'm going to do that right now. Now, I'm going to assume that we've had a little bit of time here and we've set up our Scratch accounts. I want to walk through that with you as a class. So I think that'll make a little bit more sense when we do that. All right, so I'm going to click Create. And when I do, you'll see the screen changes. It says Creating Projects. Again, mine says now Untitled 6. Yours will probably say Untitled 1. So let's take just a couple minutes and talk about what's on the screen here. All right. These are what are called basically our different, I'm going to call them our code snippets. And they're divided into certain areas. We've got motion, which is going to allow things to move around on the screen. There's a few other things that are in here as well. And you can move literally, for instance, if I would have put one of these in here, just to show you, I'm going to grab one of these and just drag it out here. It says move 10 steps. Now, if you watch real closely right there, what you're going to see is it's going to move a little bit to the right. You may or may not have even been able to notice it. But if I come through here and I put in about there's 5 of them. Now watch how much he'll move to the right. Okay? That's just as an idea, just so you have some kind of an idea as to what's going on. So, I mean, there's other things that we can do as well. All right? Maybe when he turns, I want him to turn every time. I want him to turn 10 degrees one way, you know. All right, so notice he's not going to move much, but watch how much he turns. Okay? And in fact, I could do that and then have 5 more. And just to show you this, and okay, and I can make him turn in different directions. We're going to look at all this stuff in just a moment, okay? All right. Looks, and a lot of this, as you'd probably guess, a lot of the stuff that you see right here is literally, that's what it's going to be. All right, it's how something looks. So for instance, let's say that I want to have this cat say hello. Okay? Pretty obvious. And it'll just keep it up there as long as I want to. But maybe I don't want it up there that long. So I can say hello for just a couple seconds. And then it'll disappear. All right? I can do what's called a think, where it'll say basically, and there's for 2 seconds, or I can do it. You know, you get the idea. All right? I'm not going to go through all of these right now. It wouldn't make a lot of sense. I can change the size. So let's say that I want to do this, and I could go and grab a bunch of these. I could put 5 of them in there, or I could just change that to a 50. And you see it's now 1.5 times the size that it was before. And then if I want to, I can go back and set its size back to normal. All right. I can show something on the screen. I can hide something that's on the screen. Notice. This won't do much because it's immediately having them hide and show again, so you don't see that. All right. Here's some stuff with sound. All right. So I can play sounds. There's a bunch of built-in sounds. You can record your own sounds. Okay. You can change things like the pitch of the sound, the loudness of the sound, etc. One thing that we're going to end up using in virtually every program that we have are events. All right. So this says basically when clicked, which means start the program, what do you want to have happen? And you'll notice that some of these different things have different shapes, and we're going to get into all that stuff as we go on. All right. So for instance, if we said okay, so what's the difference between that and this? Well, technically, when you've got a program, this is basically the start of most programs. All right, if I don't want this stuff anymore, I just take it, drag it over to the side, and get rid of it. And there's a bunch of other stuff that we can do here, too. All right. Then we've got some control stuff. You don't always, for instance, notice this. Okay, so I'm saying it to repeat it 10 times. And let's do just there. All right. And repeat allows us to do just that. If we want to do something a number of times, we can put it in what's called an infinite loop and tell it to repeat forever. We can use if statements. And with an if statement, it's kind of like you're walking down the road and the road ends and you can either go left or you can go right. Sometimes you can only go left. And that's just a regular if statement, an if then. Sometimes you're walking down the road, it ends, and you can go to the left or you can go to the right. So that's an if then else. All right, there's other things in here. We're going to go through many of them. Then we've got some stuff in here for sensing. Now, with a lot of the stuff that's going to happen in here, we'll hit on some of this stuff when we go through the maze game. But it's if you want to move around on the screen, you want to move around to a certain area on the screen. Here are your operators. So if you want to say if something is equal to something, not equal to something, if this is true and this is true, then do this. If this is true or this is true, then do this. That's all in here. Again, we're going to go over most, if not all of these as we go on. Here we can even come in and create our own variables. All right. After we create our own variables, you click here and then you give it a name. Then you can set the value of the variable. You can change the value of the variable. You can show the value of the variable, or you can hide the value of the variable. You can create your own lists of variables, and what you're going to see fairly quickly is you can also come in and you can create your own block of code. All right. Now, very quickly, I want to jump back here, and hopefully you didn't find that too much where it was, oh my gosh, I'm not going to get any of this. All right. But again, what I wanted to show you is when you brought it up, the screen was split into 3 parts. We had this part over here, which had our different blocks. Part over here where we put the blocks. And the part over here where we've got, this is Scratch the cat. All right. And as far as what all that stuff is. You already saw this. That was our menu bar that was up on the top, and you saw how it changed. Okay, when we create a project, it's called untitled followed by a dash and a number, but you should really, when you do this, you should give it a different name and do a file save right away so that it's saved. And you should save on a regular basis. Now, Scratch is a product that it is a very stable product. All right, whoops. It is a very stable product, so there really shouldn't be any problem with it. That said, all right, that said, you should save often anyway. Now, when you decide you want to run your program, you click the green flag. If the program's running and you want it to stop at any time, you click the red stop sign. All right, so this is the stuff again on the that's here, that's on the left-hand side of the screen. All right, you may or may not have noticed this, but it's got 3 different areas in there. Scripts, where all this stuff is. Costumes, which basically brings up where you can do some drawing. And sounds, which is pretty much the way that it does sound, no pun intended. These are the different tabs. And when you click the different tabs, what shows underneath here will change. This again is your scripts area. So as you pull these things out and put them over here, they go into the scripts area. This is called the blocks area. Sometimes it's called the blocks palette or the block palette. But it's got the different things that basically you can put out here. This is called the stage. When you run it, of course, the stage gets a lot bigger. This again is the sprite or the little character, whatever you want to call it, that you get by default. And that is Scratch. Now, by default, it's just called Sprite 1. All right, and you can remove it, but there's always basically got to be some kind of a sprite on the screen all the time. If you want to change the background, notice there's a backdrop over here that you can use. You can click on here on the little blue eye, and it'll show you information about the sprite. You can change the name of the sprite. You can add new sprites here, etc. So I showed you a little bit of this, and I'm going to put this code in just a second just so you can see it. So why do I have this in here? Well, notice what we've got here. We've got these things are all color coordinated. So something that's dark brown like this is an event. So when you click or when you get started, this is a looks. So when you get started, it should say hello. Then forever, which means infinitely, it should try to move 10 steps. And it should turn 15 degrees. We're going to look at the turning in just a second. But if we bring this in here, see if I can do this. Thought I'd written this before, but I probably haven't. So let's see. I think I can do it like this. So I'm going to go back into Scratch, and I'm going to attempt to write this. So we start with a when clicked. Which is in our events. So when clicked. Next thing that we want to do in here is we want to say hello. All right, you'll notice how these, once you get close, you can see how it gives you a little outline. It just snaps into place. So when clicked, say hello. And next we've got what's called a forever loop. right? So what do we want to do forever? Okay. And what we want to do here is we want to move 10 steps and then turn 15 degrees. So there's move 10 steps, and then there's turn 15 degrees. All right, I think that's everything that I had in here. Let's take another quick look. When clicked, say hello forever, move 10 steps, turn 15 degrees. Okay, so what does that do? It's easiest to show it to you, and that is I can either just click on here, all right, or I can also click on here. And you'll notice that he's moving in a counterclockwise direction. If I were to come in here and grab this, and where I'm telling him to turn 15 degrees this way, if I told him to turn this way, you'll notice now he's turning in a clockwise direction. All right, and that's just a little bit of an introduction of the kind of stuff that we're going to be doing. Now, just very quickly, because I want to finish this up, there's a really nice set of slides, and I was going to go through this with you, but I want to keep your attention rather than lose it. But I've got this out there, and it goes through the different types of operators and blocks, etc., in more depth and breadth of coverage than I just did. Okay. Scratch also has, when you go in there and you start to look at it, so for instance, when I come out here, if I click on costumes, see how that changes? So I can come through here, and there's a lot of different things that I can do in here. All right, notice I've got purple in here as my color. So I could come in here and I could say, I don't know, all right, now my cat's purple. Okay, so if I come back again, it's still purple. All right, so when I go to costumes, I'm able to go in and I'm able to add, I can play with sprites and I can do a lot of different things in there. This is basically a graphical type of editor where I can go in there and make changes. There's other things that I can do as well. All right. Now, the project that we're going to work on in just a couple minutes, back when I was younger than you, believe it or not, back in the 60s, there was a toy that was called a spirograph. All right, this is back before we had computers to entertain us, and we had to entertain ourselves. And you had little toys that were in here, and you put stuff together and you made these kind of cool little designs. All right, so that's what we're going to do in just a couple minutes. The only thing I wanted to quickly mention to you, just very quickly, a couple things, and we're going to see these again. One of the things that I wanted to mention to you is, if you notice, when you are moving around in here, we're basically moving around in increments of 15. As we go from the top to the middle, we're going in a positive direction. So we're going from 0 to 180. As we go from the middle back to the top, we're going in a negative direction. All right, and that'll become important when we start to do some work and we work with random numbers and the like. You're going to see it in just a bit. Now, the other thing I want to mention regarding this is, if you take a look right here, you may have learned this stuff back in grade school, middle school, I don't know, that if you've got an axis here, and this is your y-axis, and this is your x-axis, that right in the middle is what's known as the origin, 0.00. Scratch is unique, and that's its 0.00. In most programming languages, 0.00 is in the upper left-hand corner of the screen, just so you're aware of that. All right, so I think the rest of the stuff that's in here, yeah, we'll take a look at it in just a couple minutes. So that's it for our introduction. When I come back in just a couple minutes, we're going to build something that's not going to be really this ugly, but it'll look a little bit like this. So I'll be back to do that in just a couple minutes.